Hello to everybody. Oh, this is my first web YouTube show talking about my experience since I started this art adventure. Well, since it's my first streaming live show, I'd like to introduce a little bit of myself. This is a temporary and live, not pre-organized, so it's very spontaneous and in progress. I like to keep like this because I think it's more interesting just talking about the experience, the way I remember, the memory I have about these years I've been working and thinking about art. The reason why I'm talking in English is because, I don't know, my experience being an artist, using a language, my, of course, a way of expression, of expressing myself is not by words, it's not about, not by talking really. But since I've been interested in new media since the beginning of my adventure in the art world, the art field, I think English at the moment is the only other language I speak, basically, beside Italian, and I can reach more people using English, even if my language and the knowledge, the knowledge of expressing myself with another language, it is not my mother language, is quite different. And of course, I can be limited by words and way of expressing myself. But it doesn't matter. I try to do the best I can, and we'll see what's going on. So as I said, today I've been thinking for quite a while. I've been doing a little bit of other streaming video show using Facebook, using Instagram, and it's actually the first time I'm using streaming YouTube. It doesn't matter. Maybe the reason why I choose the YouTube is because on Facebook and Instagram there are people I used to, people that follow us, more people known, friends, and so on, that quite know my work. On YouTube is, I don't know really who's following me in here. So it can be quite, it can be more interesting actually, more in a new platform, and see what can be done. So it's actually streaming and can reach you, anybody. So the reason why I'm doing this here is because, as I said before, I've been quite interested in using new technology and trying to use new technology also in my work as an artist, experimenting different way of using this kind of instruments. Just as history, my bio is I've been doing work of art using more traditional, starting from using a traditional technology like drawings, sculptures, and stuff like this. But then, very young, I started to be interested in technology like video and any way to experimenting expression, art expression, and to express myself in this way. Of course, my beginning for my age, I am not the generation of digital. I'm really in the between, because my age started being an artist of, as I said before, traditional media, more traditional, and was still analogs, the way the supports were still, even in video or other photography, was still in analog support like pellicola. And also with these tools, I have been experimenting and doing artworks, different kind of pieces using this technology, and experimenting also in installation, video, and stuff like this. But in '88, starting the computers were more was the beginning being available, and since then I started to trying to learn and to understand the possibility this kind of tool can give, and what kind of contribution can give to my art and the art in general. Of course, the technology is not the only thing I'm interested in. Is not the only. It's not what I'm only focusing in my art. Of course, technology is only an instrument, is only a tool, and it required contents. It require also topics in different meanings. That's why but also since the beginning I started to be very interested in what the influence of media got to people, to me. That's what I started to be interested since the beginning of my work, using trying to actually express myself and thinking on how the media, advertising, TV, newspapers, all magazines, and all sort of media was influencing my life, was influencing life in society. So that's why I'm being very interested in using also this technology, not just expressing myself on the idea of how technology, the media was influencing, but still using traditional media like paintings and sculpture. That's why in the on both sides I was experimenting using both analogic media and supports, and more technological new of course, depending also on how available was the equipment, because since I was a young student, I didn't have much money, I didn't have a lot of opportunity, and also talking in the 80s, 1980s, having technology available for making video and photography was quite expensive. And in Italy, where I used to live that time, in the 80s, being a student in Beaux-Arts, in the Academy of Fine Art in Milan, the time was technology in the art world was really, really new, was very, very, very new and experimental. Not majority of artists not don't even know, and of course in a traditional gallery don't even talk, don't even it was very difficult anyway to see and to work with these kind of tools, especially at least in Italy. Of course, if you in that time, if you go to more advanced country or more advanced in a special shows like Biennale or Documenta, Kassel, and in other country, Museum of Contemporary Art or more in avant-garde galleries were showing artists using video or photography in that time. Since then, as I said before, since those tools, those equipment were difficult to actually to use and to have the availability for to work for the money and the possibility I got. Basically, my first experience was to try to learn in a professional studios, professional labs in a more commercial field area that had the possibility to have these computers and those instruments where I could learn doing commercial work and at the same time understand how this machine could work. I mean, in the art also. The beginning was very difficult. I mean, I couldn't really figure it out what to do and how to use it. But in the time I was still a student, talking in 87, 86, 87, I had a friend in the Academia of Fine Art, another colleague in my class. He was Swiss, and what I remember was was the first time actually in my life that I see a guy with a video camera, Portapac, trying to do sculpture and installation using video. And that's how I was basically introduced by this technology. And with this guy, we're still friends actually. We started a few collaboration, and definitely this friend could give me the basically the input to open my mind, because also I went with him seeing shows, performance, theater, music, and all kind of experimental art that was in that time was using new technology. And at that time, it was really opening, was really very wise in my art perspective, to find out this kind of new language, new way of making art. as I said, in different fields, not just visual art, but also theater, new movie, new cinema, the installation, and of course, seeing a lot of work, a lot of pieces, a lot of art in around Europe, for in particular. It was the time I used to move in Middle Europe, from Italy, Switzerland, Germany, all Netherlands, England, and French, and Spain, etc. It was important to understand, to see more an international view of the art world. That time also, like to remember, we started to do some collaboration, and because our also nice friendship, we decided to make a group of artists, to experiment and trying to make our own work, and be able to know the people, and to meet similar situation around the world. It was very important in that time. It was very important. Also, our first trip, actually, before Claudio, my friend Claudio, started 1 year before. He went to New York. He went to US to following the summer courses with in the new academy, or some academy in New York. I think was New York, NYU, New York, New York University. And basically, he started a short period of the year, I think 1 year, something like that, to be in New York. And soon I finished the academy in '88. I went to visit him in New York, and that's where I really felt shocked about the art situation. Another world, very, very different from Europe in a way, but in another way similar also, because of course the American culture is different, but also very connected to the tradition of art and European Western world. But in another way, in another perspective, that of course is related also to the different politics, the different way of social and economical, and everything, basically, in many ways. This experience, of course, was very important in my life as an artist, young artist, and to see different, very things very different and open to a contest that was more worldwide. In Europe, of course, I could see more a situation related to the European contest. In New York and the United States, but in particular New York, was a contest worldwide. Basically, all world was connected, and meeting in a way connected and crossing to that part of the world. Very, very, very stimulating, very interesting. The first visit, basically, after spending some time in the States, in New York, in particular, we came back also, Claudio. We met also another friend that was a woman, a lady called Ariella, and the three and another friends in Switzerland also, the four of us actually, decided to make a group called Adventure in Helicopter, AIEP. And with this group, based in Lugano, Switzerland, the, the group in terms of cultural association, that's what is called in the bureaucratic way. But our base was also in Milan, and so in terms of lab and working space. This area, this way of working, we started to trying to really a lab of a space very open to ideas, to creation, experimenting different, many different things, and way of collaborating between visual art, dance, music, video, all kind of things. And was also very important and interesting because this time we also became a little bit of curators, organizing other kind of shows with other artists, speech with like panel discussion with curators and theorists. So with this experience, basically, I spent many years doing different works, different things in Italy, Europe, and basically, right, all sending videos, for example, to other shows around the world. This experience basically keep me busy for a while. Not always we and I felt comfortable, because sometimes one area want to be more focusing on a field than the others, and also maybe for my the way I felt more also independent, also to experience different other things in another way, maybe. And I felt also trying to continue my personal experience also outside of the group. So that's why I keep doing also shows and my work as a sculptor, as an artist, showing things in galleries and other opportunity, other situation. This basically is what I been doing until 1993, where after that, of course, I'm not saying and not talking in details of all the other different things I've been doing, but otherwise it would be here spending days. But since 1993, I decided it was the time for me to make the big step of leaving my country and experiencing be an artist outside in another state, in another situation. And of course, since I've been experiencing and was very interested and stimulating by the situation of New York and in the United States, I decided to move myself in that country, and really as an adventure in terms of not knowing anybody, almost just friends I've been doing in my trips. That Well, then that was it. I moved in '93, and it was an experience that kept me there for 9 years, where I was able to really prove to myself to survive in this town, big town, to survive as a person, as a man, as a young man, and also to be a young artist, so almost still young that time, trying to find my way. It was very, very stimulating, even if it was hard and quite difficult for different things, but stimulating. And the big energy, the, the really uh, strong, the strong something that I want to really doing, and so I could really could pass to anything, could go on, and any difficulties was over anyway. After one after another, was very, very, very interesting. How I could afford, how could continue and survive that place. Just talking about art and the technology, the experience in technology. The first was very interesting. Beside talking about how I survived in that time doing different kind of little jobs, but very important was the way of making my art. Of course, with very, very cheap instruments, very cheap tools. I could almost find in the street or in little cheap stores, different tools where I could put together, assembles my sculpture and installation, and not having big opportunity to show my work, if not in my studio or to friend loft, making like a loft space, living and a working space. But in New York, it was very common artists being doing that. So to share and experiencing our own art and uh, find each other in just very, very interesting the way how all this artist population was connected all to themselves in just knowing the to openings, to vernissage, to these exhibitions, and all kind of situation, parties and galleries. So there was the area where all these young artists from all ages actually, was able to meet and to know each other. All this situation, all this underground art situation, of course, was very interesting. Still, I think for myself was very stimulating, even if it was not successful in terms of market, in terms of selling my art, selling art. In that sense, I was really not even looking to that. Even if I tried to show my work to famous dealers, but I don't know. Probably my work wasn't ready, or wasn't good enough, or wasn't, I don't know, the right time, or had no luck to find the right people in that sense. But still, I could make my things and exhibition, and as I said, still interested in this new media. Indeed, in 1995, I discovered the web, discover the internet, and before I was still doing my video, still in an analogic field. But in 1995, I discovered this new world. Of course, digital was already part of my work, doing my stuff, doing my work using digital photography or computerized images, stuff like this. But not, I didn't know really. Haven't, I haven't, I didn't have experience yet on internet, on this new technology, and I discovered in that time that was the beginning, in 95, 94, 95, that the web made his appearance, made his started to become popular, and I was really taken by this technology, and because for me, it was opening a window to really to the world. Just be connected on the internet by the computer, and to be able to reach people all over the world. My fantasy, my idea was really shocked in terms of opportunity of this new tool. That's why I became really obsessed to find out what I could do, and how could learn how to use this tool. Uh, the few people in the artist world, I started to contact, to trying to know in the area of New York, of course, where they were basically most activists, artists, very on the edge, more like mixed politic activist artist, more interested in that kind of way of making art, sort of criticizing. It's basically an aspect, an art system, an art environment very connected, also in Europe. I remember also in Italy, Milan, like centri sociali, social center, that where it was very common to meet these cyberpunks or cyber artists that were involved in this kind of experience, very connected, as I said, to political issues. Not that I was very involved in the political issues, even if some of my interests was, I think, also interested in the social and in some way political, but not very as an activist or as a very deep. But so became more in contact with some of those artists, and one of the experience I remember was one of the first actually experience I started to do using the internet was these small video conferences using QCMe with artists from New York or from other area. They were able to connect by video chat, and I'm talking in the 1995, 96, and with all the limit of the technology, and also the internet connection was very slow, and of course the quality of the image and everything was very, very different than now. If who could remember, who lived in that time, of course, remember how different was the technology, this kind of a technology in that time. I experienced this passage, this crossing, this transformation of technology, and of course, it is very, very. It's interesting how everything is continuously changing in this field, and also artists and anybody who's using this technology. Of course, everybody knows every year, every month almost is there is a change. Every day is there's a new something new, and everybody trying to keep updates also on the new things, what is in the hardware or in the software related on what is the newcomer. Anyway, this art experience, as I said, using this technology, not that I really was using this for making art in terms of art with the A, big A. I mean, with the way to show this kind of work in the gallery and stuff. It was very, very underground. It was very difficult to actually to speak to traditional in the traditional art system with this kind of tools, because of course in every gallery in this time of these decades was very interested in economical. We remember the 80s and 90s was very important. The investments, the stock market was this age, this time of the cultural and social system. We in the worldwide part also my interest, my work to trying to understand what the artist and what art can do to express, to understand this time of the historic time, this part of history, and be very contemporary. So, as I said, those years, these decades, 80s, 90s, the world was very interested in finance and economic aspect. And also in the art world, everybody knows that the popular artists and every gallery, every dealer, every collectors was interested to make a deal and to discover new artists that could in a little time became very famous and economically expensive. And of course, unfortunately, the majority of the artists couldn't afford to become famous and to maintain themselves with their art. And of course, the majority of artists, and also myself, found difficult to survive as an artist. Actually, I have to say that the years before this explosion of the economical, financial situation, artists, I think, for this is my opinion, artists also, including myself, could make somehow a way to pay, a way to make some little money with selling our own art. I think because still some collectors could afford, could take a risk with the new young artists. But the change in history, big change in this economical, financial stuff, became so strong that it changed also the perspective, the view of collecting art and artists trying to make works that required to be involved, included in a big market, in big circuit, so it could sell to just at the high end. And my opinion is that this way of making art, this system of art, somehow killed, destroyed all the little middle level of artist and level of art that could still survive with the little with the rest of the system, basically with the investment of with less money, less investment. But this was the history. This is how things went, things were going on. So I was keeping doing my research, doing my work, experimenting, trying to understand what to do, what I could do, and how those tools works to actually making my artworks with this technology. Not because I'm particularly in love with technology, but since technologies became so much part of our life, that's how and that's why I felt very interested. So just to continue the discussion, in '96 I opened my first domain, digart.net, is the name of the title of this speech, Digart basically. And with this domain I started to experimenting digital art, making works that could be the spectators, the public could see, could experience online, and basically it didn't require anymore the gallery or the real, natural, real space. With this idea of revolution, in terms of artist revolution, I became very active, very interested, and so that's why I make different pieces using this technology. And just because I was doing pretty good, this tool became also the tool with to make money in a commercial way. So it was somehow I was able to use this tool to in a commercial, to make websites and other digital work. Just a little parenthesis, just a little remember, little that is not very little, because before this experience that started in '96, but it became very strong in '98. Before that, I had an experience very important from 94, end of 94 until 96. Actually, 1998, I had a very important, very interesting experience working for Namjoon Paik and Shigeko Kuboto, where started as an assistant and collaborators. I was able to work with them on many projects, many works, and of course, building these pieces for their shows. It was their work, basically, for them, their shows, their art, and I did my contribution in different fields as a sculptor, as a video maker, and as a friend in terms of being with them almost all days for these years. Very important experience also because beside the respect on their work as artists, I had the opportunity to know them also as a person, and they both really really loving, very lovely people, very passionate and very good people. That's also humanitarian talking. Also in relation with other artists, also trying to help young artists, and very good. So beside an artistic experience, was also very human, nice experience. But anyway, for my interest and in the way of continuing doing my own work, and also to focus more on my new interests, as I said before, internet and this field. My collaboration continue for other years, but basically more in a distant from them, and that's why I continue doing my work on web design and stuff with the web, and also working, as I said, in a commercial field to survive, to be able to maintain myself in the situation in this workplace, New York, that everybody knows is definitely not a cheap place to live, but also be able to keep doing my work. Since basically 90 or year 2000, where with a friend from Milano, Tommaso Trini, basically had an invitation to participate with an artwork made on the web for a show in Rome, Italy. A Rome show called Le Tribù dell'Arte. The main curator was Achille Bonito Oliva. In this show, I created a piece only on the web called Bodydrome. It was a fantastic trip on airplane, and basically I create this interactive graphic sound video piece that the spectator could participate and experiencing this sort of electronic digital trip on the web. This piece also was actually pretty successful also even in Rome, the show, but after the show also in other exhibition around the world, in Brazil, in England, Germany, and still in the collection of rhizome.org, that is a digital museum online in New York. The other, of course, in 2000, I had this exhibition, and few months later, this piece, I made this piece. Unfortunately, this piece called the Body Drum, because I said body and airplanes relation and on fantastic fantasy and flying, etc. Was a sort of if was a sort of premonition on what the catastrophic terrorist attack on September 11, where two airplanes crashed on the Twins Tower. Basically, I was there, and a few months later, I find out in some way, this relation between these two work and this terrorist, this big tragedy that happened. After this show, I went to basically, after a little bit, I started to think that my time in New York was over. And after a few months, I decided to come back to Italy, and that's how I basically moved back to my town, family town, my original town, that is Napoli. And I started again from the scratch, from the beginning, to make my life start again as a person, also with my family. I came back with wife and kids, and two kids. Actually, no, they born in Napoli, and so I started to again the life with as an artist, as a human being, but always interested in continuing my art experience and research. I had an opportunity a few years later in 2003 to be invited at the Quadriennale of Rome. Quadriennale of Rome, and I made a piece. The curator at that time, I like to remember, good friends, is Riccardo Notte, and made this piece called the Synchrorama. It was an installation, interactive installation, where spectators could interact in a real time in the exhibition area, exhibition space, through sensors, and connected to a PC, to a computer, and a website that was basically on the web. I realized I made a software, was able to connect people interacting from the web and also people interacting from the exhibition space. With this interaction, you could change and modify different aspects of the piece, of the projection. Actually, I was making in the wall of the area I was assigned to exhibit my work. This piece was actually very interesting. My experience and my way of doing my work, that I tried to also before to make, but I couldn't find space and opportunity in the United States and other area. But that's very funny. The first piece, very elaborated and very also difficult to make in terms of also advanced technology. I was able to do it in Napoli, my own town, my original town. And that's where basically I was able to combine and assemble all those pieces and create this installations piece, interactive exhibition. interact in terms of peace. The exhibition was Quadriennale Roma with many artists, all kind of contemporary artists. Since this piece, I continued on being interested in the social aspect of the chat, of the internet. And after this installation, I continue to make also different works or using photography, using other technology on other supports to actually be able to present, to exhibit, to show the pieces in galleries. And indeed, my solo show happened in 2006 in Napoli, a gallery of Napoli, where I made a piece called the Webality. Just to remember, just to remind another experience I did before with the previous, with my friends Claudio, the Avventure in Elicotteri Prodotti. We organized, I invited him to organize a group exhibition, a group show on technology in Napoli, called Dig Art World. What's called extension of the body and the mind. This exhibition we made in an old, basically an old space. Was an old space of how do you say, sconsacrata church, not anymore church, not consecrated anymore. So basically, it was an ex-church in the center of Napoli. We organized this exhibition, this group exhibition, inviting artists from many parts of the world, including Stellar, including Marcellian, Tunes, Roca, and many other artists. Of course, we invited in terms of presenting their work, that mostly was video or speeches. Unfortunately, the budget was very little, so we could only exhibit their videos or their speeches they were making for us. And was very successful, with also a few artists, included myself and Claudio, Ariella, and others, few pieces we were able to present in this space, having also different theorists and curators involved to speak on art and technology. In 2005, we made this, and it was actually also a very interesting experience. Just to remember something I did before in 2006 of the my solo show at the Franco Riccardo Gallery. Still, this idea of social networks involved me very much. Different situation also in Europe. We had 2002 when I came back, Europe united, and of course my experience in the US, moving back to Italy, Napoli, and the new situation, European unification. Of course, it was very, from one side, leaving New York after September 11 was quite sort of like saving myself from a situation I couldn't thinking on what could happen after. So basically, it was very confusing, this whole situation. Just as from the perspective of a guy like me, not being particularly interested in the international politics, knowing just from the common information, from the common news, from the common knowledge about the international politics, very, very typical, very common in terms of like it was in that time, everybody focusing more in the internal and personal situation, very focused on everybody on their own success, our own making the most you can make on your job, on your to be a successful person, making big money. This was it basically. Like it looks like that time that was all important about. Uh, Even if in my feeling was very feeling not right, and for all these. Uh, all this political situation, all this called or just called more decadence somehow. That was my feeling about all this. Was more decadent. But this whole balloon, this whole fantastic world, it just blew up after the September 11 with this strong impact of terrorist attack in the Western world, the middle of the Western world, just a big economical power in a country like United States, and of course the repercussions was all over, also in the rest of the world, and the Western Europe, etc. This idea made me feel things were changing. Things were changing. We don't know how, but definitely somehow I felt it was the time to move back to Italy and trying to understand this European unification, union, how could work and what really could happen. And the situation basically, I remember in my youth, another period very, very strange and very difficult was the 70s, where the was the Cold War time, no, and we had in Italy and different parts of the world, we had a political fight and terrorists called in Italy anni di piombo, with all these brigate rosse, terrorists, and all kind of situation. Me as a kid and as a young, for our generation, definitely those years was very, very strong. I wasn't involved in politics, but of course, as a student in school and living in a town, also pretty big like Napoli, you could understand, could see different situation, and also involved in the politics was pretty strong and influencing everything in our life. But so after this black time of the 70s, the 80s, 90s looks like soft and mellow and sweet in terms of feeling and happiness. This whole world again went back to the dark age with September 11th, and is the feeling that this actually this middle age, new dark age era still going on, because since that time we keep living all this bad situation in terms of international politics, that I year after year, months after months, I became always more involved, interesting, trying to understand, basically, trying to understand something that honestly, since before, it was out of my mind and my thinking. Think talking and be interested in foreigners' politic, like in Arabics and or South America or any other parts of the world. Basically, yeah, I mean, it's something I have to say in the not in a good way. Part of the human beings, maybe we are very easy to forget the problems when we are not personally involved. So we became all very easy, very superficial, thinking also only on our selfishness, on our self, be selfish, basically, thinking only on our how to get the best we can, and forgetting about everybody else. But maybe is right to get some shock and going back with the foot on the earth, going back to the real life, present herself at the door and say, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? We this is the real life you forgot, and here we are." So basically, keep in mind you are not just on your own and living in your little gold statue or beautiful diamond diamond house. So this is a life, and for how much bad or much weird it is, you need to also, you are part of it, and you need to get involved in different way. And that's why I think since then, and for all these big changes in the world, of course, the big changes that made the 80s became, as I said before, the very liberal, very sweet and candies in terms of easy life happened right after the end of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Soviet Union and the Cold War between the two sides of the world, divided in those two parts. And probably the end of that time was became a big parties, and that's why the world forgot or tried to forget about the issue and all the worst and the problems. But in those after the 2000, after September 11, with all these other trouble in many parts of the world and different political situation, and we know. Um, Basically, it changed everybody life and everybody situation. Also, artistically, made made his stimulation and also influence. I have to say, from my point of view, I became keep still working on and interested on the social media, and that's why also now I'm using this tool to talk and to express myself, because one of the thing I feel is important is the connection, and trying to use the tool for the the good way, for what the potential give in a positive. Of course, I'm not one of the guys that think the technology is our is substitute our life, and is the best of everything. Of course, like everything in the world has something positive and negative. It's just up to us how we use it. I still thinking, and after the experience and using the networks and chat and social networks and all of these, I also have understood this is very very weak, and could also deteriorating our relation between on with the friends and other people, and also on what can do to ourselves in terms of changing our perspective, our life, in terms of enrich ourselves. But since it's something that is important in our daily life, in our social, in our life, because technology runs the world economically and military and politically. So I think also art cannot avoid, cannot look on the other side and thinking or not be involved in it. So I think as just as a tool, and just something that is related to our life in all aspects. Also, art has to be related and to find its way to know, to exorcise, esorcizzare, esorcizzare, to try to somehow get in ourself, in our brain, in our soul, in our expression, and make this tool, make knowing this tool, just to be able to use the best way we can, humanizing the most we can, and spiritualizing the most we can, just like art can do and always have done. I think for now I would stop with this first part of the interview to myself. And I think and I want to see if after this experience of doing this streaming, I feel important. I feel it's important to continue with something else. I don't know what can be done. I think is I think there are many open doors, many aspects that can be researched and give opportunity to discover, to find interesting way of using it. And so we'll see how things go. I think just for my potential viewer, of course, who I think very few or maybe nobody could have a patience or just the interest to listening at least through the end. But I feel it's very important. Like was the radio on the beginning of when it started? No, the little radios. Privates that started all over the world just by some unknown people that felt interesting to use this new tool and open to a wide world, a wide space, and that you don't know who can be on the other side listening to you. Of course, I honestly don't know who can be listening my fantasy and ideas on this moment. But I feel something can be possible, can be a little bit like the first radios in the years before, where these pioneers were using the tool just to talk, to use in a way. Of course, broadcasting like professional TV, professional radio is something possible only for big, powerful agency or powerful studios. The democracy and the freedom of internet still, even if in this period, in this time where many terrorists, many the news and all the kind of big professors are criticizing a lot internet, criticizing a lot this populist tool, just because give the possibility to anybody, even a normal guy like me, with just the idea of connecting myself through the internet, just broadcasting, streaming in real life, just something that for some of those big shot of cultural, like they call themselves intellectual. So basically, just because on my point of view, the freedom and everybody, I think that use their brain, of course, and are able to express themselves for what they think and for what they feel. I think everybody, even in many ways of no, because for me, culture is something expressed in many in infinite ways, not just because you have read Marx or Nietzsche. And for this reason, I think the wave of expressing ourselves through this new media and be able to connect and interact is another interesting things, no? Because people can interact with you through the streaming. So I think it's very powerful, and I hope this opportunity also in the art could enrich, could give some new input, could open to new possibilities, and maybe became can help to make something nicer and interesting, more interesting and strong of what has been done so far. So I like to be positive. I like to be positive, and hopefully this grows, and it can be something nice, something good. All right. I think I'll stop here for now. This has been maybe painful for people who hear the listen my English, and I don't know. For now, for today, that's what I felt to do, and hopefully, okay. Good night.